new LinkedIn Hiring Pro can't undo your last hire, the no-show. Who set you back because they didn't show up on day one, or day two, or ever again. And now your product launch is delayed because you're talking to alien abduction podcasters to track them down. But LinkedIn Hiring Pro can help make sure your next hire sticks. In fact, businesses who use LinkedIn are 24% less likely to reopen a role in the next 12 months. Hire right the first time with LinkedIn Hiring Pro. Post a free job today at linkedin.com/quality.
This episode is brought to you by PayPal. You had plans for the last days of summer. And back-to-school shopping has its own plans. School supplies, dorm essentials, your list doesn't stop. Neither does the spending. But when you pay in full with PayPal, you can pay over time. No interest, no fees. Check out with PayPal and get back to summer. Subject to approval. Learn more at paypal.com/payinfor. PayPal Inc. NMLS 910457.
This message is brought to you by Apple Card. Shave ice by the beach. A trip to the state fair. And a throwback flick at the local drive-in. They're more than just items to check off the summer bucket list. They're also opportunities to earn 2% daily cash back when you use your Apple Card with Apple Pay. Apply for Apple Card now and use in-minutes with Apple Pay. Subject to credit approval. Apple Card is issued by Goldman Sachs Bank USA, Salt Lake City branch. Terms and more at applecard.com.
Hello there, Stanley Carr here. You know, I love collecting music and sports memorabilia. Want to know where you can find some? I'll tell you. Go to oldglory.com. This website features one-of-a-kind apparel from your favorite sports teams and musical artists. And I can help you get 15% off of all items. Use the code WWH135. Enjoy the episode.
Welcome to Wrestling with Heart, a podcast looking at pro wrestlers giving back to their community. Join me, Stanley Carr, as I interview wrestling's hottest names who use their platforms as entertainers to raise awareness and do community service.
Hello there, and welcome to another edition of Wrestling with Heart. This is the show where we talk with professional wrestlers and professional wrestling personalities about their lives in and outside of the ring, as well as doing acts of charity work, community service, volunteering, and spreading positivity. We're always about the positive vibes here on the show. Before I introduce my guest today, I want to take this time to promote our brand new book, which you can see right here on the screen. This is Champions for a Cause, Volume 1. It is a collection of interviews with some of your favorite professional wrestling stars. I am talking about Mark Marrow, Buff Bagwell, Tito Santana, Jake the Snake Roberts, and so many others. You can get your copy now on Amazon for $15. It is available as a paperback. With me right now, I've got a very special guest. He has competed for numerous wrestling promotions across the country. I'm talking to the King of the Territories, Mr. Jeremiah Plunkett has joined us. Welcome to Wrestling with Heart.
I appreciate you having me.
It is my pleasure. So talk to me about your childhood and upbringing.
So I grew up in Middle Tennessee, suburban Middle Tennessee. I don't know, had a pretty, I guess we're a lower middle class. Both my parents worked at a factory all growing up, pretty blue collar. Never wanted for anything, but we didn't have a lot, if that makes sense. Played sports all my life. Started baseball when I was really young. Did not really interest me. I was the kid who in a coach pitch or T-ball was in the outfield because a ball was never going to be hit out there. So I was playing in the grass. It wasn't my thing. But then I discovered football and played football from middle school on through high school. Thought there was going to be a chance to play in college. And my body had other ideas. 5'10" offensive linemen don't go in the SEC nowadays.
No, I mean, like, if you really want to make it in professional sports, you got to have a build, and you really have to have like the stamina to be able to go out and basically run and catch a ball and be as quick as possible with doing that. And so what made you decide to turn to professional wrestling? Were you always a fan?
I was a fan. My earliest memories are watching professional wrestling, which is crazy because no one in my family was a real big fan. It would come on and like they'd have it on the TV, but there's no diehard fans. So I don't know where my fandom came from. I watched WWF and WCW like everybody else in the mid 90s. But when I discovered USWA, which is crazy because it was in the dying days of the territory, but it really spoke to me because, it was so low budget, and I'm saying this all lovingly. It was so low budget that they had to make their stuff seem more realistic, and the issues were more personal. It wasn't somebody stole my jacket, so we're going to have a match. It's a blood feud. I see a music video of Jerry Lawler throwing a fireball, and that's when I knew I wanted to be a wrestler, because for some reason in my head in wrestling school they taught you that. I didn't know any better.
There's something special about studio wrestling because it's so unique. You can't really find it anywhere else because they just don't do it as much as they used to, because it's all big arenas, sold out crowds, stadiums, and you had years ago just a 90-minute episode of television, which was taped at your local television studio. And I think there's something to be said about the significance of what local wrestling means to people in the community.
Yeah, at one point, there was 30-something territories operating all throughout the country where you could go and make a living, depending on the territory, depended on the living, but you could go make a living doing this job. And then eventually by mid to late 90s, every one of them dried up.
Who would you say were your favorite wrestlers to watch as a kid?
Growing up, obviously with the USWA tie-in, Jerry the King Lawler was my number one. Dutch Mantell, Jeff Jarrett. And then when you go looking into like watching WCW, Arn Anderson, big time. I don't know what spoke to me about Arn. Arn seemed like the legitimate tough guy where everybody else was telling you how tough they were, like and screaming it at you. Arn was saying it very quietly, and I believed it. And then WWF, I was a bit of a Hulkamaniac when I was like real little, but then like early to mid 90s, I was more a WCW guy. Until the Attitude Era blew up and then everybody became a WWF guy. But like I was WCW early on.
I think the interesting thing about being a fan when you're in the 80s, the rock and wrestling era, it was very like child friendly, kid friendly oriented families. So much appeal to families. Had all these colorful characters, baby faces everywhere. And then once you get into the 90s, especially around 95, 96-ish, was when I feel like it was at a point where the audience started evolving with the product. The product changed and the audience changed, and the two kind of meshed together. And I feel like you could say like the company grew with its audience.
Yeah, I think that makes a whole lot of sense. And also with the way the world was changing, everything throughout the 80s, I think, was still pretty propagandized black and white. There's good and there's evil. There's no shades of gray. And then like as society changed and we started seeing the shades of gray, and people aren't all good or aren't all bad, but could be morally good but still do bad things, that's when the wrestling started to have to change because everything else seemed phony. The red and the yellow, eat your vitamins, say your prayers, was good until about 93, and then it just became hokey.
Yeah, and two, when you have so many companies, you had WWF, WCW, ECW, all these companies were just booming during this time. Wrestling just became so popular. It was really part of pop culture. They were on all the billboards, magazine covers, television shows, movies, you name it. It was so popular, and you had to be there.
Yeah, no, 100%. And it's weird because one day you were kind of hiding that you were a wrestling fan, And then the next day, everybody's wearing a wrestling T-shirt, and you're like, "Oh, these shirts I haven't worn to school because I didn't want to get made fun of. Now I can wear all of them." Because one day it just became popular to be a wrestling fan.
Did you know at a young age this is what you wanted to do?
Like I said, my motivation point was seeing Lawler throw that fireball, and it's just like I need to do something with this. My original plan, as plans do, they change, was I was going to go to college, play football, and then after football, maybe just because JR, if you had a college football background, JR is he's going to look at you. He's going to put you over in commentary. Like I said, I got a few offers, but they're from like small private colleges where like I would still have to pay $10,000 a year just to play football to not get looked at. So that did not fly in the lower middle income family. So I went to Middle Tennessee State for a couple years. And yeah, I decided I'm going to try to find out where to train. Internet was not what it is today. So I didn't think to log on and go, hey, wrestling schools around me. I'm sure I would have found some, but didn't. Probably would have went to OVW, honestly, if I would have done a Google search. But so I went to independent shows, and I would literally I would dress a little bit better than the average person there. So I stood out, and we would ask people on the way to the ring, hey, do you train guys? And most of the time get looked at like we're really strange. And then one night, me and Mike Woods looked at me like I was strange. And then after the match said, stay here. And him, Buzzed Up, and Lee Condrey ended up training me and my three friends.
It's a hard business. You really have to be physically tough, mentally tough to want to prepare to be a professional wrestler. Talk to me about your experience learning how to wrestle, grasping the knowledge, information. Did you feel like you could get it right away?
So we had a bit of a heads up because we also participated in backyard wrestling. And we weren't our little group wasn't crazy. Like we had a couple guys who do some things, but it wasn't like you saw on the late night tapes and all that. My dad was a carpenter by trade, so he actually built us a wooden version of a wrestling ring. When we'd go to indie shows, he'd get caught looking under the curtain. I remember Burt Prentice asking him what the heck he's doing, but he's looking under the curtain trying to get an idea of how to build one. We built one out of wood that kept breaking, and then we replaced everything, and we got tired of it breaking, so we double plywooded it and screwed the plywood down. So we're basically essentially wrestling on a deck. But we had a couple guys who either had done a little bit of pro wrestling and quit, or they were on the indies but still backyard wrestling a little bit, which was very frowned upon. So they showed us some stuff. So we came in. Our rolls and our bumps were pretty much, our very basic bump were pretty much already there. And it was the other stuff that we needed, like our other fundamentals.
So when you're in the ring, learning from your trainers, what pieces of advice are they giving to you that you're applying, and even stuff that it's still sticking with you today, even outside of the ring?
So as far as the training stuff, like it's very, what's the word? Everybody's going to hear sort of the same things, the tuck your chin, blah, 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 blah. And then it's all the stuff that you don't listen to during training, like slow down, this, and this, that takes you 10 years to realize, oh no, they were right the whole time. I think the biggest thing that I still listen to today, and I am completely anal about, is you show up to shows at least an hour before doors open. You're there on time. You're a professional. You're from there from that time until after the main event. And so, and unless there's extenuating circumstances, I'm going to be one of the first people probably at the show, and I'm going to be one of the last ones to leave.
Yeah, perfect example. That's John Cena. I've heard many stories over the years of people saying he was the first one to come in, first one to exit the doors following the show, and you really have to be dedicated to this 100% and put so much effort into this, because like with anything else, it takes so much of a commitment, and you have to show passion and dedication for what you do. And pro wrestling is no different.
No, not at all. And the other thing is, like, it's professional wrestling, and it's not just professional because you're getting paid. It's professional because you're supposed to conduct yourself as a professional. And I read Larry Zbyszko's book early on, and something that stuck out that he had said in it was like his entire career before contracts, you made your name on a handshake agreement, a guarantee payout, and a 2-week notice. You're only as good as your word. So I've always like taken that really, really pridefully. I very rarely cancel bookings. I've probably canceled in the 22 years I've been wrestling, maybe 10, and that's even. And those were almost all for injury. You know, it was something I've always been told: if I can walk, I can wrestle. Those were times I couldn't walk.
What would you say was the hardest lesson you had to learn throughout your career that you wish you could go back and redo if you had the choice?
If I could go back and speak to the younger me, I would definitely a couple things. I would tell him to work on his body and really get into diet and nutrition, because I believe that's something that's held me back. And I mean, it's not that people didn't try to help me with it. I just was more. I thought my ring work would carry me, and it did to a degree. But what could have been if I was in better shape? Also, I would have taken care of my body more. I went through a period of time because I wasn't aesthetically pleasing, let's say, that I thought what I can give the business and stand out is take pretty extreme bumps. And I went for a time where I was taking backdrops on the floor, taking rolls down bleachers, all sorts of things on a nightly basis, and did a lot of damage to my body over that. And I feel it now.
You were able to, after months of training, finally make your debut in the ring, put a few matches under your belt. What can you tell me about overcoming the nervousness and gaining confidence once you had those first few matches under your belt? Any word backstage, encouragement from your fellow peers in the back that empowered you, so to speak?
So early on, the veterans that I had, and this is going to sound bad, but I appreciate it in hindsight. They weren't quick to give out a compliment. They were.
The new LinkedIn Hiring Pro can't undo your last hire, the no-show. Who set you back because they didn't show up on day one, or day two, or ever again. And now your product launch is delayed because you're talking to alien abduction podcasters to track them down. But LinkedIn Hiring Pro can help make sure your next hire sticks. In fact, businesses who use LinkedIn are 24% less likely to reopen a role in the next 12 months. Hire right the first time with LinkedIn Hiring Pro. Post a free job today at linkedin.com/quality.
Quicker to tell you what you did wrong, or if you did fine, they just wouldn't say anything. Which is good to a degree, because I see people now who if they ask for advice, they only want to be told how well they did. And I never had that option. You know what I mean? So we didn't have anybody. And the only time they say it was good was if they didn't watch it. You know, they'd be like, "Oh, didn't see it, sounded good." That means they didn't pay attention at all. But I remember the point where I was like, maybe I'm getting this. And Rick's going to laugh that I'm bringing him out on this. Rick Reynolds, who wrestled in the area as Forsaken, and under a mask as Damien, as part of the Devil's Disciples for years. I remember I had a match early on, and I came back and Rick tore us apart. Said we were terrible. We were never going to get it. Years later, we crossed paths again, and I had gone out and wrestled other places and learned more. And we were on a show together, and somebody had been telling him that I had gotten better, and he didn't believe it. And I could tell by how he was acting that night. He didn't. He thought about me about the same. And we went out and we had a match, and we came back, and he pulled me in the middle of the locker room and like just said what he said before. And he goes, "You have proved me wrong." And that was, gosh, I was 7 years in at that point. And I think that was the point where I started getting a little bit of confidence that like I had turned somebody's early opinion around on me. Somebody I respected at that.
So over the course of your time in the business, you've been able to wrestle numerous opponents. Who would you say have been some people you consider to be some of your favorite opponents that you've stepped in the ring with over the years?
Early on, Chris Michaels, the headliner Chris Michaels. He is one of the most underappreciated, and just for one of those guys who just for some reason never got signed. He was in that group, that OVW group. He was one of the veterans who was teaching Brock Lesnar in the ring every night, teaching Randy Orton in the ring, teaching John Cena in the ring. Like he was the guy who wasn't under WWE contract, but Jim Cornette was bringing in to have matches with these guys so they could learn. And Chris, there is nobody better in that ring than Chris Michaels. As my career has progressed, what's the word? I guess my most lasting feud and the person if we're booked together, not only are we going to have a good match, but we're probably going to do stupid stuff that we'll both regret later, is Crazy Steve. We've had some wars, casket matches, and fire and chairs, and just all sorts of crazy stuff. And then every now and then we split for a while, and then somebody will bring it back just for us to run it back. And there's something about when we touch that we're like, all right, we're going to do something dumb that we're going to regret tomorrow.
It's always nice to have those opponents, those people that you're in the ring with, like you create that chemistry, that magic with.
Yeah, and Steve, like our original angle when we were working with each other is Steve, we had 2 years to build to that casket match. So, I mean, we got really comfortable with each other. And then, so anytime from then, it's just like, it's literally like hopping back on a bike, probably easier than that.
You've also had the opportunity to share the ring with legends as well, big names in the business. Who would you say have been some of the people you've gotten to spend some time with, learn from, that you consider your friends or people that you've had been able to share some stories with?
I got to have a little mentorship from Tracy Smothers, and that one will always be very special to me, especially with his passing. And I'm not unique in that. Tracy had so many people that he mentored. He had this really insane ability. He couldn't remember what he did yesterday half the time because concussions, but he could remember something you told him a month ago, and you ran into him in another month, and he'd ask what you were doing and where you were booked. And if you were having trouble getting bookings, well, let me call somebody and try to get you on. Like, Tracy wanted to make everybody around him better. And it breaks my heart that there's a generation of wrestlers now who will never have that Tracy Smothers interaction. The first name I got to get in the ring with was Ricky Morton. I went with Sean Schultz up at East Tennessee to wrestle, and he and I had a match. And I came back, and Ricky and Tracy, and there's some other guys in the locker room, just like old timers, like holding court and having old timer stories. It was fantastic. And Ricky goes, "Hey, you booked next week?" And I just came up with Sean. So I'm like, I looked at the promoter. I'm like, I don't know. Am I? And he goes, if Ricky wants you here, yeah, you're here. And I'm like, all right, I guess I am. He goes, cool, I want to work you. And I was like, oh God, I'm got a week to sit on the fact that I'm wrestling with wrestling with Ricky Morton. And the whole night, because, Ricky's very old school. You're not talking about anything beforehand. And that's fine. That's fine. I was actually trained that way. But he can tell I'm nervous. So he starts cutting jokes on me. And I've always been bald, always had the beard. And I used to wear a red, just plain red butcher, like double strap, trunk cut on the bottom. You know what I mean? And it's just plain red. And I was sitting there. He goes, you ever thought about doing a Russian gimmick? And I was like, no, Ricky, I haven't. I can't do the accent. He goes, no, I think you should do it. I got the name. You should be Balls Frozen Off. Ricky was always the best with those, like, just little joke. He can make you feel comfortable like that. And he's one of those legends who's, like, become a friend over the years. And it's wild for me to say that, but when my dad passed, Ricky called me and just to check on me. And he's a genuine soul.
Yeah, it's always nice to have those people that are in your corner that you can count on as a friend that are there for you. It's a brotherhood, and having those people in your life, it's just essential. It really is. You've been able to do a lot of things as far as giving back to your community outside of wrestling. What are some organizations or things that you're very passionate about to help others?
So I've done numerous shows we used to Tried and True Pro Wrestling. I used to run in Tennessee, and God, I wish it would start back up. As a victim of COVID, unfortunately. But we were running really big events, and nearly every event would fund some sort of veteran cause. I know we did Wounded Warrior numerous times, and I'm not always sure on which. That was above my pay grade. I helped with some parts of the show, but like finding the charity was above my pay grade. Crimson actually was the one who ran the show, and he's the one who found the charity, which being former 101st Airborne, he had kind of the know-how of which ones were the best. But so we'd always have a charity influence there that we'd donate portions of the show to. Here in the most recent, like in the past few years, I've been really big about St. Jude. My sister-in-law is quite a bit younger than my wife, but she, and I won't go into details, but as a youth had cancer. I mean, flat out what it is. And St. Jude helped the family out tremendously. So if there's a St. Jude charity show going on, and like I'm within where I won't, go into crazy debt to be on it, I'm going to help out because I've seen the good St. Jude can do.
Yeah, I mean, they're very passionate about helping people, especially young kids, and what they've been going through. It's just so traumatic and devastating. And when you see these kids, it's like, oh my gosh, you feel for them. You want them to get the help they need, and you want to give them as much support as possible.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like I say, going through it firsthand, because I've always been kind of gun shy about certain charities, because you'll see the things where the person running it's making $9 million a year or something like that, and only 5% of your donation helps anybody. So I've always been worried about stuff like that. So seeing what St. Jude does firsthand, like that immediately opened that up to me. St. Jude's one I'm gonna continue to support.
What is it about giving back to the community that gives you the most joy?
Well, in St. Jude, obviously, it's seeing what they've done and knowing that, whatever little bit that we're able to contribute to get back to that goes to help somebody else, like St. Jude helped my family. I'm also a real big fan of boosters So for like, high school teams that don't have enough money for new singlets, like I especially like supporting the wrestling teams because I did a little wrestling in high school too, and they're undersupported and underfunded. Football gets all the money, but wrestling barely gets any. Our singlets were nylon with a screen printed on S that after 2 matches was falling off. We could have used a fundraiser. But I really enjoy that because the athletes get behind it. And, because there are a lot of times the ones selling the tickets. And it's way easier to sell a ticket than a candy bar or whatever they normally have them do. But then the day of the show, the athletes are, they're part of the show. So they're going wild and they're into the show and they're having fun with it. And then they donate the check or however they do it at the end. And you get to see the actual appreciation for the money that's raised and stuff like that. And you make some fans along the way. So I always enjoy helping out, schools or clubs with athletics. Like I said, St. Jude's my main like cancer charity that I go to. It just kind of depends. I'll do a charity show in a heartbeat if it's something I can get behind.
Yeah, when you have that cause that you really are into and are passionate about, it just goes a long way to spread that awareness to other people, and then they chip in and join in for the support as well. You never know what could happen when you have a lot of people around you in your community that it can make such a huge difference.
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. And helping somebody nowadays, like, it's needed because there's so much hate going on out there. Let's do something nice for people.
Exactly. Jeremiah, this has been wonderful. I want to say thank you for coming on to Wrestling with Heart. It means a lot to me and to my listeners that are watching this on YouTube. Where can people find about you on social media? And if there's anything you want to plug, feel free.
Well, here's the main place you're going to find me on social media because as of all the negativity in the world, I have pared down my social media relatively recently. I have gotten rid of X. I never checked Threads, so it wasn't really a shot at Threads. I just never checked it. Instagram's the main place to find me, and I am at Plunkitis on Instagram, Plunkitis. You can thank Danny Deals for that one. He gave me that nickname years ago, and it stuck, and it's been my social media handle since. So that's the main place to find me. I'm on Facebook too, but that's more close friends and family. But X. Oh, no, sorry, I'm sorry. NC. I'm still messing up. But Instagram, yeah, that's the main place to find me and interact. All right. Well, thanks again, Jeremiah, and you're more than welcome to come back. I would love to. I appreciate you, man. Thank you, Stanley. Of course. And remember, get your copy now of Champions for a Cause Volume 1. It is available on Amazon as a paperback. Talking about people like Mark Merrow, Buff Bagwell, Jake the Snake Roberts, Tito Santana, and so many others. Get it now, Amazon.com for $15. I'm Stanley Carr, and I will see you next time.
This is Wrestling with Heart. I hope you found this podcast to be informative and entertaining. If you did, please hit the subscribe button and look out for the next edition.
Back to school is busy enough. The last thing you need is shopping that makes it harder. Whether you're moving into a dorm, your first apartment, or just getting organized for the semester, Wayfair makes it easy to get everything you need in one place. Furniture, bedding, storage, decor, study essentials, all at prices you'll love, with fast shipping before move-in day. Get everything you need for back-to-school season. Shop Wayfair.com today.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
The right window treatments change everything. Your sleep, your privacy, the way every room looks and feels. At Blinds.com, we've spent 30 years making it surprisingly simple to get exactly what your home needs. We've covered over 25 million windows and have 50,000 five-star reviews to prove we deliver. Whether you DIY it or want a pro to handle everything from measure to install, we have you covered. Real design professionals, free samples, zero pressure. Right now, get up to 45% off with minimum purchase, plus get a free professional measure at Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions apply.
NFL football season is here, which means when you switch to Verizon, it feels like touchdown. Because you get NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube on us when you buy an eligible 5G phone on select unlimited plans, which means you can watch every out-of-market game every Sunday afternoon. And it's all on us. Now that's the Verizon way to kick off the NFL football season right. Switch and get NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube on us. Only with Verizon.